I'm WG and it's time we talk about Season 1 deck building. So, how can you play every factor to your advantage to build decks that look, for example, like this, where you target very specific cards while getting multiple copies of it. The same is then obviously also true for experiments like this, where you can get the same card 3 times, the same card 4 times. Obviously, one of the most popular examples of this would be the hunt for multi-shadow reload decks. So what can you do? How do you play this? Where do you play it? And everything else in between. So it all, at least for the purpose of this video and also the purpose of this season, starts with the seasonal chaos. And the reason for that is not only can you only play with seasonal decks in the Nebula distortion, but the first half, the Great Rift, is a game mode that also is going to be using seasonal data. So by farming in the seasonal chaos, you just get more time relevant decks. But that doesn't mean that the Zero system isn't something where you can still farm for decks, because you can still use those decks to defeat the basin of hyperspace. So for the purpose of this, we are mainly going to be focusing on seasonal chaos. So there's a lot of questions going around on which difficulty do you farm and why do 9, 10 and 11 exist. As of this moment, the only reason 9, 10 and 11 exist is so you can prove yourself, so you can play harder content and have a bigger challenge during your run. But what also comes with a bigger challenge is you having to make tougher decisions that might, for example, interfere with you building the perfect deck. And that is why you're always going to find people playing on difficulty 8. Not only is difficulty the 8 the easiest difficulty out of the 4, but it also has access to all the right, you could say, save data values. So the save data values do not increase from 8 to 11, they stay the same. And then let's, on the note of save data value, quickly talk about save data level. So the save data value, obviously it depends on which characters you're playing, how confident you are in beating the content, but in general the kind of thing you want to be aiming for is around the tier 12 to tier 13 range that then gets +1 during the nightmare mode, whereas you can also make your decks in tier 14, which opens up a little bit more freedom in deck building, giving you that 170 point cap in nightmare mode. But also do keep in mind, if you want to go to that difficulty, you'll have to spend anywhere usually from 300 to 500 refreshes, so 3000 to 5000 season currency to find just one tier 14 map. In luckier cases you find them easier, in unluckier cases it takes you longer. So now what is so important about these maps is also that you realize one fact. These things here, these debuffs, they never change. The only time they change is if you complete a run, if you completely and fully beat a run. So long as you quit any time before the final boss, you do not have to reroll your map. That also means the moment you hit tier 14 for the first time, you can keep it on as long as you need until whatever you want to takes you throughout the whole duration of the fight and has you complete said fight. So I guess let's just take the opportunity quickly to just talk a bit about these debuffs. But in general, things that should be avoided are, for example, adding in elite areas. Obviously there's no proof, but if you add in more elite areas, these elite areas have to replace something. And what they could be replacing is something like shops or question mark areas, which are up in really high on your priority list of what you want to be looking out for. So in general, me personally, I don't tend to play maps that have like 6 or 8 elite areas. I think 4 or maybe 6 would be still fine, but in general, hey, that's the way I go about it. If you want to do something similar, you can. Just keep in mind you're going to find this elite area thing quite a lot. Then other things that can be quite dangerous depending on who you play is, for example, the harden buff. The harden buff means that by round 3, so you only have 2 turns and going into round 3, enemies now take 40% less damage. The thing where it becomes dangerous is if, for example, you play somebody like a Luke and you only have like a 36% multiplier on your bullets. That means all of a sudden your bullets are doing 0 damage, nothing at all, and it only becomes worse going into turn 6. So depending on how multi-target, how low multiplier focused your character is, hardening can get quite dangerous if it takes you quite a long time to kill. Then depending on who you're running, you might or might not be able to with the deal with the increased boss save, anywhere from 10 to 40%. 40% can get quite dangerous, but with the right setup you should still be somewhat fine. And then the other ones, like things that I usually like to look for, is something like this. Reducing the credits gained from battle is quite fine depending on how good your healer is and how many hits you expect to take a turn. Cannot resting in safe zones usually also goes out well. And taking damage based on max save does not reduce your max save, it only deals a percentage at the start of every turn, so it's not as debilitating as it sounds. So now that we have this standard stuff out of the way, let's just go into one run here and let's continue talking about like the tricks, the ideas that yeah, you really want to apply. So first off, as we already talked about, what actually happens if you were to crit right here, right? Like if I were to quit right here, the map stays the same. The only thing that changes is my first fate. The fate that I pick on moving into the exterior gets changed to the guaranteed laziness fate, which gives me a 10% max HP buff. So you lose the access to, for example, like a tunnel spying fate or other fates like that. Though in general, that really isn't as bad as it sounds, and you can quite reliably lose out on that first fate. So quitting here actually isn't that bad of an issue. So now that we've successfully quit here, we can also take this time to talk about something that's becoming more and more popular, and that is what is actually behind making good decks. What do you actually want to achieve? What you want to achieve is obviously you have your idea for your character, or you got an idea somewhere else, or you want to try something out. And usually if you have more cards of the same card, it just leads to a stronger effect, because some cards always have like more interesting shenanigans to them. So how can you ensure that your chances of copying the card that you want are at its highest? And the way you can do that is by the use of unique cards. So you can see this unique tag on a card cannot hold more than one card that has unique. What that means is whenever there's a copy option, this card will never appear. So for example, popular characters to do this with are in supports somebody like a Ray, where you have the Resonating Darkness with the unique tag, or somebody like a Mika who has the unique tag on the Deluge. Or then obviously the most popular option, and that is Veronica. The reason why Veronica is so good for this is her starting card is unique, her purple card is unique, and depending on your Epiphany luck, you could say, you could also get the unique upgrade from the Pendant of Resolution. But that doesn't mean you always have to have Veronica, it doesn't mean you always have to play Veronica. She just gives you that slightly higher percentage of gaining the card that you desire. So now that we know about unique cards, what else can you do? This is something that goes risk and reward. Depending on the difficulty, depending on your team, depending on your investment, this might actually lead to you losing runs, so you kind of have to like test the waters and get a feel for it. And that is the concept of, instead of removing characters' basic attacks, you're actually going to be going out of your way to remove characters' Epiphany cards. And the reason why is because Epiphany cards, if they don't have the unique tag, can be a copy target. It all kinda leads to that same mentality. If you have less Epiphany cards, that makes it a higher chance for the remaining cards to be one of the three for you to pick. So that is the ability of, for example, let's say you play with a Ray, right? If you play with a Ray, if you play with a Ray, what you could do during your run would be, for example, removing Strike of Darkness, or removing Predator's Blade, or removing Dark Condensation to increase the chances of copying what you want. And then there is also something that is exactly in the same vein, and that is, while neutral cards are absolutely fantastic for specific builds, like how this Retain Bullet is incredibly amazing on like a Retain build for a barrel, or how gear bags and reorganizers are really damn good and really important to having good deck rotations on your supports, what neutral cards also do is further add into the copy pool. So if you're looking to build a very specific 3 copy, 4 copy, 2 copy deck, you don't want to get any neutral cards into your run. So the way you can get neutral cards into your run is obviously twofold. Number one, you just buy them from a shop, you get them from an event, or number two, you use a conversion event. Now, conversion events, there is one that is really good, and then there's one that's not so great. So the conversion event that gives you a card that then removes itself at the end of the fight is amazing. The reason why it's amazing is because it changes the save data value from whatever it is to 0. You pay absolutely nothing for getting rid of the card that you converted. The only issue with that is the mutant sample can appear as a copy option, but that's kind of a risk you take to get a better deck at the end of the day. Now, the worst one would, for example, be the starting fate that turns 3 of your basics into new cards. The reason for that is that these cards can then be copy targets at the final boss. But that doesn't mean it's a bad option. And the reason for that is if you think of it like this. If you take a card of the character's 8 and you turn it into another card and then remove that turned card, you save yourself 10 points. So depending on the way you want to approach this, you can save yourself save data cap by converting a card first and then preferably selling this converted card before you ever make it to the boss. But then in the same vein, if you spend all your removes getting rid of converted basics, you're still going to keep in these standard epiphany cards, which then lower these copy chances. So this was a bit of a tangent, but I hope you now understand why certain things are more popular and how this can shape what you do during a run. So then let's once again go back into the chaos. So for example, we pick ourselves our Veronica, we pick ourselves, let's say our Ray, and then what we're going to be doing here is we are going to enter into the chaos, and then let's just talk about how do you read a map, what are events you want to look out for, and shenanigans like that. So we go in here, and this is one of the best events. The reason why this is one of the best events is because just at the start of the run, you can already remove 2 cards. And what we can do with these 2 cards, for example, is not only can we get rid of the Strike of Darkness, but we could also, for example, technically get rid of the Rapid Fire if we massively wanted to increase the chances of like building a Veronica deck, right? Keep in mind, the moment you start removing epiphany cards of a character, that character in most cases doesn't really become a target anymore for your run to get a good deck out of, right? Because epiphany cards are really strong on the respective character. So if we were to, for example, take away Luke's Rapid Fire, all of a sudden we already both know, okay, Luke is not going to be our target for this run. Right? So what you can do is, for example, refresh until you get the double remove so that you can kind of get like this head start into going into the fight. Now, why would this double remove head start be so important? That is something that the game doesn't tell you, but the only time you're going to ever encounter removal related events is in the exterior, outside, on your way to the first boss. You're never going to encounter removal events in the interior after the first boss outside of shops. So the only way for you to further refine a character's deck past the first boss is only with the few shops you actually come in contact with moving towards that last boss. So keeping that in mind in kind of already using your removes smartly and shaping your deck while moving towards the final boss can be quite helpful. Alright. So now that we have this out of the way, let's talk about some basics about how I approach fighting in a map. So first off, this is your worst enemy. In most cases, you should have enough healing and you should be able to manage your stress appropriately. That safe zones, standard safe zones should as a general rule be tried to be avoided. So what I always try to do is first, I want to find the path that gives me the most amount of question marks possible while giving me the least amount of, for example, safe zones. So here we could have a look at the bottom lane where we have, if we go down here 1 question mark, here we have 2 question marks, this is 3 question marks, and we make it to the midway point. We'll talk a bit about why midway point in a second. Or we could here take 1 fight, 2 fights, 3 fights, again 3 question marks. And you can see in the top lane, we would only have the ability to get 2 question marks, and we would also run into campfires. Campfires kind of waste your turns. So the reason why I also say campfires waste your turns is because only during fights against elites and against elite battles, or during fights in the unidentified areas, can you actually get epiphanies, and then these epiphanies, there's also something like a hidden meter. The more fights you do, the more it fills up to the point where it kind of like guarantees you an epiphany. So if you feel like you aren't getting any epiphanies, fighting in unidentified areas, taking more normal battles, taking more elite battles can help you get more of these epiphanies if you see yourself ending in a run without having your cards fully epiphanied. The same is also true for putting in more neutral cards. If you put neutral cards into your deck, these targets or these cards can also become targets for epiphanies rather than your character's dedicated cards that you would be looking for. So then let's say, for example, we take the bottom path here, we get ourselves our 3 question marks, and then we make it to the waypoint. Now, why is the waypoint so important? The reason why the waypoint is so important is because the waypoint is, once you make it past that, not only have you made it so far into the map that laziness is not going to be applied if you escape, but from there on out you can also save your save data. If you haven't known it yet, or if you just want to think about it simply, if you want to make a character that has the least amount of cards possible, you always want to try to get to the waypoint and then you escape. So for example, trying to build like a Ray that only has a snack time, you then use like the 2 removal event at the beginning, remove cards from Ray, encounter a shop, encounter a question mark, remove 2 further cards, and then the moment you hit the waypoint, you bounce, you go, right? And another reason why the waypoint is so important is because it's a good visual cue, and that is only after the waypoint will you be able to find a dimensional tunnel. And the dimensional tunnel can only safely be, you could say, spotted in one way, and that is there have to be 2 question marks in a row. It doesn't make a difference if one question mark is here and the next one leads up to a question mark or leads down, but there have to be 2 question marks in a row. Otherwise you're only guessing, otherwise you're only playing per chance, and that is exactly what's the case here. There is no obvious 2 question marks in a row, so there is no dimensional tunnel in this fight, and this is actually a fight I won't take. I'll actually leave before I spend my time playing this map. Now, for that we have to first talk about the dimensional tunnel. So in the dimensional tunnel, you know what you can get, right? You can get your forbidden cards, who can be incredibly strong depending on the character you put them on, depending on which card it is. But what you can also get, usually 9 out of 10 dimensional tunnels encountered in the interior will give you the chance to apply a divine epiphany on a card. There is also a rare event that allows you to even select a card to get the divine epiphany. So what you can then do is use this tunnel to hunt for or improve your chances of getting divine epiphanies for the cards that you desire. And the reason for why it would be important to get these divine epiphanies on your preferred card in the beginning is because you really want to have your card either epiphany, just standard epiphany into the card, like a Shadow Reload for example, or divine epiphany into the card you want, so that you already starting with the first boss have a chance to copy it. Because if you only get your desired card after the first boss, you've already missed 1 copy opportunity, and now it's purely up to luck to you not only finding the copy event in the ore vein, but also getting the card you desire from that ore vein event, while having a duplicate of another card that you might not want as much already thanks to the first boss, and then copying it again at the final boss. So that is usually what I do. My goal is always to, depending on who I build, get that character's card before encountering the first boss, because I always want to have that chance to already get the first building blocks for building my character's deck before I even beat this first boss, so that when I do beat him and then I either do or don't get the copy, I can just quit after the boss and call it there. That is also where 90% of your runs are probably going to go, depending on if you how strictly you want to follow this advice. So what we're going to do here again is just for I guess just for presentation's sake, we're going to go in again and we're going to find ourselves a tunnel, just so I can show it to you visually. You've probably already seen it. It should be easy to spot. but you can actually get kind of fast at it. Here, none of these options are good, but we're not actually looking for anything specific to build. We're just going to go in and we're just going to look for a tunnel. So we make our way in, we continue. You can see we're going to get hit with the laziness fate, but that is totally fine. So we take the laziness fate here, and then it's our way to go to the map. Check out the map. Here again is the breaking point, so from here on out we start searching. And as you can see, here's a dimensional tunnel. It's one question mark connected to another. So if we go in here, there's a 95 to 98% chance of us actually getting a dimensional tunnel right here, which means for me, I already know whatever effort I put into this is going to be worth it, because I at least have one chance at getting a godly epiphany for one of my cards and then already being better prepared for whatever deck I could get. So for example here, let's just do a little bit of pathing. Once again, we want to avoid as many campfires as possible, and we want to get as many question marks as possible. So my pathing here is just looking at this map would probably go something like this. We would start at the bottom, then defeat these two fights, take the question mark here, move up, go through the other two fights, get these two question marks, deal with the elite, get the next question mark, move down, get the question mark here and the forbidden tunnel, then probably pop out of the forbidden tunnel right here, take the boss, and see how it goes. So now that we have this out of the way, let's just rapid fire go through events that you should be looking for and what you want to do with these events, so that you have a better idea. So let's just have a look at it right here. So first off, I guess we'll just go over all of these events and I just talk a bit about what I usually do with those. So for example here, there's an enemy here, you can fight this guy, he can help you with he can help you with getting more epiphanies. He'll also give you some coin. He'll give you one of the rewards. Usually, I always take like the credits or the fights if I can. In these safe encroachment events, if there's the opportunity for me to remove a card, I usually use the remove. And the thought process here is, if I get a remove from an event, even though it might give me 140 coins versus a remove, the remove is continuously going to increase in cost every time you use the shop to do so, meaning that getting the remove here instead of, for example, 140 credits is actually better, because the remove later down the line would cost us more than the credits we were to gain from the event. Then echoing cannon right here, you just take whatever stress option you want if you need an epiphany or not. Keep in mind, if you take an epiphany going into the last boss, you again reduce the chances of copying the card you truly want. So then clean off Peltian, I always fight this guy. I always fight this guy, and the reason for that is not only do I get the item that he has, but I also get 40 credits every time, and I also get my process towards epiphanies. Now, remnants towards failure. This is just where I usually take the 80 credit option. 80 credit option is because I don't have the dice roll, I don't lose anything, and it's just the fastest way to go there. But if you want to, you can gamble on the 140. Now, this is the real interesting one. You kind of see it indicated by this cage, and this is the event where you get the remove card that we talked about before. So every time you get to the remnants of failure, you want to save your reroll dices, and the reason for that is because you need to hit an 11. You need to hit an 11 on the remnants of failure too, otherwise this event is useless. So then you use this item, you transform whatever card you desire of your character that you're targeting this run, and that is what you want to do with that. And once again, risk versus reward. Emergency broadcast depends on the rewards, but usually I take like, I don't know, the credits or maybe like the shop reduction. These manager robots, they're kind of like side events, they're not that interesting. The mouthful, again, double remove, pretty powerful. Either use it to get rid of your basics for your character that you're building, or getting rid of epiphanies for your characters, so that you can ensure that you have a higher chance of copying the card you desire. But hey, it's a free to removal. These memorandum things, I gotta be honest with you, these are goddamn rare. I only found them for the first time, like I think yesterday, after still doing like 100 runs. But the important thing you need to know here is you probably pick the middle option, because they're items. The items they give are not only unique to them, but also pretty damn powerful. Now, mealtime. Let's see, Fade Replica. I think mealtime should be the combat test. So in the combat test, I usually take the test, I do the highest level because you get yourself the emblem of exceptional entity. It reduces stress taken to 0, but it also gives you plus 30 on any attacks of your character. So really powerful on characters with generally low multipliers, less powerful on characters like Haru who are like big straightforward hitters. So then Memory Archive, really good if you're looking to get like these interesting neutral cards on your supports. Not that great if you're looking to dupe specific cards, because once again, the common cards, the neutral cards you actually put in, or yeah, common cards I think they're now called, you put in from the outside can be targets for you to duplicate. Now, the Explorer of the Void has 3 answers, okay? Depending on which event you get, the answers are Void, Greed, and Hope. Void, Greed, and Hope, depending on what it is. These 3 answers are unique, so you're never going to see like a double of them. But Void, Greed, Hope is what you're looking for, and your reward is going to be a Divine Epiphany to a random card. Display of Tragedy. If your character is someone like a Rin, someone like a Yuki, you take the Replica as a weapon, pretty damn good. Someone like a Mei Lin can work as well. Anybody with like card draw, maybe even Beryl, but eh. And yeah, that's kind of it, right? Usually I skip when I get this event and don't have any of these characters. I just skip. I just go out. I don't take the card. Like I take the middle option for the card, but then I just leave because the card would just take copy chances away. But hey, if you need a 300% heal while making yourself vulnerable next turn, you can still pick up the card just fine. Now, for these Fade Replicas, first, very important, never fight this guy. It's not worth it. Like, take the middle option or take the rightmost option, but don't fight him. If you fight him, you only get a legendary item. Not worth it. And for this Fade Replica guy, you kind of just have to go by what you have. Projection of Desire, I do believe I always take the Divine Epiphany. Logic Errors, I usually take the credits because I'm quite credit dry to like get the last items for my characters from the shops to get the last removal. But I guess if you feel like you're struggling with the boss, I think one of them reduces boss HP. Now, Heart of the Ore Vein has 2 variations, right? Heart of the Ore Vein number 1 gives you a card that is rare or above, 1 out of 3 as a copy target, which you should always pick here. Or if you want to play it safe and you're just looking for a great weapon for somebody like a Mei Lin, Rin, and Yuki, you would go with the Chimera Knight. And the Heart of the Ore Vein, this is what you desire. This is what we've all been looking for. And this is what is so unfortunate with the Season 0 planet, this is not guaranteed. And if you do get the Heart of the Ore Vein rare version, you get the ability to pick whatever card you want to copy, which also includes forbidden cards, which is unique to this planet itself. Usually forbidden cards cannot be copied, they cannot appear at the copy target of an event, but they can be copied with the Heart of the Ore Vein too. So if you get the rare Ore Vein, just copy whatever you want to copy. And then here for these dimensional tunnels, always pick the highest reward, because the only thing that happens in these dimensional tunnels is they empower the final fight of the dimensional tunnel, but never to the point where he actually gets scary. So, for example, this would be a Divine Epiphany, this is a Divine Epiphany of your choosing, this one is a Divine Epiphany by clicking on the middle guy. So there's a bunch of Divine Epiphany, yeah, I think there's like 3 Divine Epiphany events, and this one even is a common one. So, yeah, and that's pretty much just that. And then what else? I guess we could like spend the last time just talking a bit about, I don't know, do we talk about one of these guys in particular? I mean, we could talk about the Huntmaster a little bit, right? If you want to know what to do against the Huntmaster, or better said, how you can avoid the Huntmaster, I guess I'm going to just show you something else that you might or might not find interesting. So, depending on what kind of team you play, you might be stronger against Void, or you might be stronger against Passion. What you can actually do is we just fast skip through this. Yeah, give me the credits, yada, yada, yada. You can actually read the map, and the way you can read the map is by knowing that you're fighting Passion and that you're fighting Void enemies. So Void enemies always have, let's have the map load, Void enemies have always this symbol. It's kind of like going to be like some type of Void creature, either with a mouth or without a mouth or something similar. Now let me quickly beat the fight and then show you what I mean. So this is what I was talking about. This one, you kind of see how it like resembles like the shape of like this godmother, this like Nihilium creature. This one always indicates passion enemies. This one always indicates void enemies. Meaning, if you are still scared of the Houndmaster, if you are close to the final boss with like 2 or 3 stages away, do not pick a normal fight with a red enemy. Normal fight with a red enemy, if you do have the choice, means you're going to be fighting the Houndmaster, whereas if you were to pick Void, there is a 0% chance for you to fight the Houndmaster. And also in general, if you for example have the choice to pick between elites, depending on the coloring here, you can tell what type of element they are, and in general I would assume, or I would say that the passion enemies here are definitely more scarier than the void ones. So this is everything I can teach you about how to build the best decks possible, everything I can teach you about the Season 0 planet, and I hope you were able to take something away from this, and as always we see each other in the next one. Peace!